When and who were Hindu, Buddhist. Missionaries are preachers, who were born in India during the pre-Islamic period to enter the archipelago, so that sites in the archipelago are called based on one of the teachings of India. That it is true that Hindu, Buddhist originates from India, and it is not true that sites in the Indonesian archipelago are Hindu, Buddhist based. In fact, what is depicted on the site is the teachings that underlie the birth of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism in India. Understand this. Wanachaka Phala is now published named Borobudur. There are 160 panels on the bas-reliefs of Borobudur which are now not exposed to the language and teachings that underlie the original teachings of our ancestors, not from India. The 12 words, Svarga, are not, Nirvana, Nibbana, and the other words are Kusaladharmabhajana and Mahachakya proves that in this land the original Dharma teachings originated now perfectly preserved in Bali. In the past brought by our ancestors the Kaka, Saka, Kakya, Arya left the Indonesian archipelago. Raffles named this magnificent building with the name Bor Budor with the assumption that near the site there is a village, Bor. In fact there is no village called Bor. Budor, in Javanese means, ancient. The meaning of Budor, Bidor in the Javanese language is, boils. Johannes Jaesbertus Casparis, Dutch philologist writing in his 1954 dissertation estimated its construction to be around 824 AD. These estimates are not the result of conclusions based on academic scientific research. The books that are said to underlie the design of this building are Shilpa Shastra and Vastu Sastra from India. In fact, all of these books only existed in the 5th century AD. This magnificent building had already existed before. The basic relief, which is not exposed, is published with the name Karmawibanga, using the interpretation of the Mahakarmawibanga manuscript, but does not fully follow the manuscript. Burnett Kemper's 1970-151 in 1976. Borobudur, published based on Mahayana, India is it true Chinese pilgrims from Fahim 399 to 414 AD to It Shing 671-695 AD. Came to the ancient archipelago to study, instead of bringing Buddhism from their country to spread here, and Palembang was not the center of Buddhism in the past. Do not get me wrong, let alone participate in publishing it without any basis. The most important excavation by Indonesian Buddhist scholars is the concept of divinity in Buddhism, which is adopted from various studies of ancient texts in the book Sanghyang Kamahayanikan. The teachings of the ancestors of the Indonesian nation, namely the concept of Hyang Widi Tunggal, and on the basis of one of them. Here, the state entered, Buddha, into one of the official religions of the state. When Bhikkhu Ashin Jinarakita came up with the idea of holding a national, Trisuci Waisak, ceremony at Borobudur on May 22, 1953 from now on, published, Borobudur based on Mahayana. A nun as well as a Thai academic concluded that only 50% corresponded to the biography of then Siddhartha Gautama, and the rest did not understand. In the archipelago in the 4th to 7th century AD, it was not recorded that Indian missionaries came to the archipelago. Chinese pilgrims who come to the archipelago are to learn and record the Dharmic original teachings that have existed for a long time in the archipelago, not to bring teachings from their country to the archipelago. Palembang is not a center for Buddhist teachings. Chinese pilgrims who came to the archipelago to study and record teachings from the archipelago, which were brought to their country. Fa Huan 337422, add travel notes translated and annotated by Korean recension of Chinese text by James Legge. The Fa Huan building with a statue in it beside a large tree is the site of Mendit. In 399 to 414 AD, Fa Huan on a journey in Svarnadvipa recorded following the Po Nai River is the Panay River, Kampar, in a place where the students used to live and move, walk in circles, surround the Tope stupa as well as 4 teachers sitting in 4 corners, in which the tower has been erected. Pradaksina Prasalya Tawaf in Muaratakas. Sung Yung 518 to 521 AD records the existence of a power which he calls Saka Kasatrapas, from the identification of coins which are thought to have existed around 225 AD with the image of Tope, or the Muarataka stupa. In the years 602-664 AD, Hyan Sang recorded what he saw in Svarnadvipa. Beside it was a stupa built by the king, about 200 feet high. Near this is a sign with which the Tathagata is walking to and fro. Wei Ning 664 AD 667 AD traveled for 3 years on the island of Java to translate a sutra about the understanding of life after death, in this archipelago called Svarga, translation assisted by a Javanese expert named Jnanabhadra. Svarga, not Nirvana. I Sing or Yi Jing 671-695 add a traveler from China who came to the archipelago 3 times, departed from Guangzhou sailing 20 days for 10 years in Sriwijaya 685 to 695 AD. He stayed for 6 months in Sriwijaya, 2 months in Malayu to study. The ancestors of the Indonesian nation, the Brahmin, referred to by European historians as Brahmanism, were the Saka of the Aryans who brought their Dharmic original teachings outside the archipelago before the Veda was written. Inspired by Nusantara in an even older period, long before the Vedic era 6500 BC, there was a teaching that was adopted, namely, Dharma. The original teachings of the archipelago, the Saka, our ancestors, this is the source of the initial, Dharmic original, teachings. Then in the era after the Veda was written in India as well, after its pioneer figures were recorded. Dharmadasa 700 to 620 BC, Dharmapala 670 to 580 BC, Sanjaya Balathapada 6 BC, Saraputra 568 to 484 BC. Svarnadvipa Dharmakirti 610 BC 520 BC. There were 2 names at different times: Kumarilabhada I 618 to 540 BC, Adi Sankara 569 to 537 BC, Kri Janyasa de Puntahayan 671 to 702 AD, Rshi Markandeya, 9th century AD. Kri Janyasa 6th century AD. They are Putra Nusantara pioneers of Dharmic original, whose landmark in Muodakui is now published. Muaratakas is the center of advanced civilization before 78 AD, who built sites in the archipelago as well as Nalanda in Indian Bihar, later named Srivijaya with his character Sailendra. The Dharmic, Brahmin teachings brought by the Arya Kakya, Saka, were our ancestors long before and later led to the emergence of interpretations of the Vedic chess scriptures that gave birth, Aranyaka and Upanishad, Veda, to be studied and interpreted freely. This freedom led to the emergence of several different teachings and schools. In 563 to 483 BC, was born Siddhartha Gautama, the figure of Buddhism. In the years 549 to 477 BC, was born Mahavira, figure, Jainism. In the 9th century AD, the British era in India was born of teachings that did not come from a founder or one point in time as other teachings, to distinguish neither the two before nor Islam, based on Vedic. Hinduism is the amalgamation or synthesis of various traditions and cultures in India. Synthesis arose around 500 to 200 BC in India, with diverse origins and no founding figures, growing side by side with Buddhism until the 8th century. From North India, Hindu synthesis, it spread south. Late 18th century, Hindu became the equivalent term for Indian, who was not Muslim, not Sikh, not Jaina, not Christian, not Buddhist, encompassing a wide variety of adherents and practitioners of different traditional beliefs. The meaning the term Hindu is an antonym to other beliefs than the word Hindu, with the ending ism, was added around the 1830s to refer to culture and religion. The term was accepted by the Indians themselves in terms of building national identity to oppose colonialism. Hinduism, as a gathering place for various coherent and independent traditions, was supported by the Sanskritization of the 19th century under the dominance of Western colonialism and Indology. From now on, the term Hinduism is widely used. In short, in India before the 9th century AD, there was a formal teaching named recognized in India as well to distinguish not the two religions born in the 5th century BC. Buddhism, Jaina, was also not Islam based on Veda. The root of Hinduism is the Brahmanism of the old Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, brought by the Saka, Kakya, Kaka, Aryan people. This means that this understanding was brought by immigrants, in fact the indigenous people of India named Dravida. The origins of religion in India began with the entry of the Aryan Kakya, Saka nation, which brought enormous changes in the life order of Indian society from 3102 BC to 1300 BC. That the Aryans were not the first inhabitants of India, and the Harappan, Dravidian civilization existed long before their arrival. This means that the Aryan or Vedic culture was not the sole source of early civilization in India, that the source came from somewhere else. This change occurred because the Aryans carried out cultural integration with the native Indian, Dravidian, and then this integration gave birth to 3 Indian religions, the Aryan nation after it started writing the Vedic scriptures. This holy book was written in 4 parts such as Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and Atharva Veda. These immigrants are humans who came from the archipelago. Our ancestors were the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan. The literacy of this word was perfectly recorded in Borobudur, with the word Mahetsakya. The text of the Mahabharata Udyoga Parva sentence 108 can be interpreted and even concluded that the East was the origin of the teachings, before being recorded as a book called Veda, a location designated as East. This is where the creator of the universe first sang Veda. This means that the literacy of the word East in the above quotation is Southeast Asia Nusantara Indonesia. This is where the teachings of Dharmic originated and studied long before the existence of teachings that were born in India. So the root of Hinduism is the Brahmanism of the old Vedic teachings are based on Vedic, brought by the Saka Kakya Kaka Aryan people. The text literacy of the word Kakya is inscribed on the bas-reliefs of Borobudur. Now it cannot be seen because it is closed, not because a technical reason is about to collapse, and after it is published there is a relief of Porno. Kaka are the ancestors of the archipelago, written on the bas-reliefs of Wana Kaka Fala, Borobudur, with the literary text of the word Mahachakya, nation Kakya, Sakya, Shaitya, Saka, Great Aryan. The Kaka already existed far from 78 AD from the time of conquering the King Indian, Salivahana. This 78 AD figure is misinterpreted to calculate the beginning of the Saka year in the inscription. Various new cultural practices such as ritual sacrifices, which all form the basis of the early Hindu Veda culture, the basis of which is the teaching of our ancestors. Dharmic is Dharma Dhamma Dhammo, recorded in the literacy of the word Kusaladharmabhajana in the bas-relief figure of Borobudur. So true Hindu Buddhist originated from India and not true sites in the Indonesian archipelago based on Hindu Buddhist from India. The teachings that are perfectly preserved in Balinese culture and depicted on the site are the teachings that underlie the birth of Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainas brought by the Kaka, Saka, Kakya, Arya. Our ancestors left the Indonesian archipelago by Santosaba.